warm welcome, my dear students, and we will continue with the fifth unit, your data access. And so far we have discussed your four topics in your unit 5, and here in this presentation we are going to see an example for your data connection, along with this working with ADO.NET and ADO.NET. And before that, we have to know what are the connection classes what we are having in your .NET framework. We are having two types of connection classes. One is your SQL connection and another thing is OLEDB connection. Your SQL connection is used for Microsoft SQL Server, and your OLEDB connection is used for a different database access. That is your Microsoft Access, your Oracle, or different databases. For that you are using your OLEDB connection. So what are the two types of connection we are having? We are having your SQL connection and OLEDB. And this is a basics example what we are going to see is. So we are having a customer table with a database, and from that database we are going to having a connectivity with your front end, and how we are going to make that connectivity we just see. You just choose on in your menu item database. After clicking on it, you can have the Server Explorer window. In that window, for that add connection, you have to give what kind of database you are going to have. That is, what kind of database you are going to connect. To give that, you have to go on to the change button. When you are clicking to the change button, it will display what kind of database we are going to select, whether it is an Access or Oracle or SQL Server or MySQL, what kind of database we are going to give. And below that you have to give your database name, and after that you have to click on to test connection button. So it will display as a test connection succeeded. When it is coming as succeeded, you just click on to OK, and here you just give it on a OK button. So here you are going to establish your connection with the path, that is what kind of database you are going to select, and what is the name of your database you are going to give in this add connection dialog box. And next thing is, after giving that OK button, it will move on to the test connection succeeded window. So from the OK button, so then it will ask for a data source configuration wizard. That is, there it may ask what kind of data source type you are going to connect, a database or service or an object. You just click on to database, and after clicking on to the database, you just give next button. Next you just click on to data set, just give on to next button. Next data source configuration wizard window will be open. From there you can have the connection string path. So below that you may have a data source equal to something. So that is what your connection string. You just copy this, because this is what we can use it for your database connection in your coding part also. So after copying this, you just next button. Next it will ask for a checkbox. You just check button. Finally you just give a checkbox for the table, and what is the name of the table you want to select. You just select it and give a button. So this is how we can make the connectivity. Okay, and the next .NET. So before working with ADO.NET, we should know some introduction part of your ADO.NET. So your ADO stands for Active Database Object. Your ADO stands for Active Database Object. And before ADO.NET, we have used your ADO for your accessing of data from the database, and now we are moving on to your ADO.NET for as a better technology. It has been introduced in 2002 only. Okay, and what is the work of your ADO.NET is, it will be communicate between your front end and back end. That is your application, your VB.NET front end, and with your database or Access or Oracle or MySQL or SQL Server database as a back end. It will be act as a communicator between your front end. And this is how your ADO.NET will be. So you have to go from bottom to top approach. That is, below it we are having your data source, what kind of data we are going to connect, and to the next box we will have your data provider. So after giving a data source, we have to establish a connection that we have discussed in the last presentation, right? We have to establish a connection, we have to give it to the data adapter, and then only we will get it on the data set. So we have to establish a connection. From that it will move on to a data adapter, what type of query, or we are moving to command, or it will go to a data reader. So it depends upon the output what we are using, whether we are using a Windows Forms or web forms or other type of forms. Okay, after establish a connection, it will choose what type of data provider. Next to it we are going to use, that is the data adapter or command or data reader. Next to it, what the purpose of your ADO.NET, that is what the data set. Your data set, what it will have? It will have the queried information from your data adapter to the data set. From your data set, it will move on to your Windows form here. This is another simplified view of your ADO.NET. You will have your ADO.NET as a whole for your database connectivity. So you can have a data provider. You have to establish a connection, and we can have your data adapter or command or reader, what kind of forms we are using, and from that adapter we can move on to the data set. So simply you are establishing a connection. The connection, after establishing a connection, you are moving to data adapter. So what your data adapter will have, it will have the query what we want to execute, and after that the queried information we will move on to the data set, and from the data set it will move on to a front end, an application front end as Windows form or web forms or any other thing. Okay, this is a simplified view of your radio.NET object. And so far we have discussed, no, we are having SQL Server, we are having Oracle Access as a different kind of database connectivity. So for different kind of database connectivity, there is a need of providers, that is an intermediator, to make them as a connected with your front end. So for your .NET framework, we are having 3 data providers: Microsoft SQL Server, then OLEDB data provider, and ODBC data provider. So below that I have just given a small example how the connection string it will be, how the connection string for an SQL Server connection or OLEDB connection or ODBC connection. ODBC is a full form as Open Database Connectivity. So your data provider of your ODBC is, it is an open database connectivity. It will have a driver manager, and also it is used for your relational database. And OLE data provider, this is what we can use it for access. Okay, for access we are using your OLEDB provider. In the last video we have discussed with an code part, right, a 3-line code, DIMDS as a new data adapter and data reader. From that we have given this, right, OLEDB dot data reader equal to something. So this is what for access connectivity we are using your OLEDB provider, and for SQL Server you can have a separate provider, and for Oracle also we will have a separate provider. So for each different connectivity of your database we will have on different providers. Your last topic of your 5th unit is overview of ADO.NET object. So what are the objects we are having in your ADO.NET? That is very important, right? So connection object, you know, the connection object, it will represent the connection of your database, right? Your command object is what? The SQL statement or the stored procedure. So your SQL statement or the query what we want to evaluate. Your data reader is the read-only moment, that is it will read or it will retrieve all the data from your database to the front end. And the data set object, it will have the set of data that has been retrieved from your query. And data adapter is what? It will pass the information from the connection to the data set. And we know that after establishing the connection, there is a need of executing the query. The query that will hold is by the help of data adapter. The query executing information will be stored in your data set object. So these are the basic important objects of your ADO.NET: your connection object, your command object, your data reader, data set object, and your data adapter. This is how we can have the window of changing the data source. So there, while we are seeing the example, we have chosen, no, that we can have a change button. After clicking it, we have to choose what kind of database we have to select. So that window is what this Microsoft Access database file, or SQL Server or database file, or Oracle database. What kind of database you want to choose, that we have to choose in by this window only. After clicking on it, we just click on to OK button. So that's it. We have completed with your 5th unit. I know it is very small explanation for you. So these are the links which is helpful for you to refer it very briefly. And also if you are having any doubt, you just text me, so that we can have that as a discussion forum. Okay, thank you.